So the question in the US, in Turkey, elsewhere, people ask to me at a time when United States and Israel are bombing Middle Eastern countries, why are you questioning Muslim societies? And I have two answers to them. Maybe I should start with that too. First of all, I'm writing a new book about Donald Trump, populism, religion, clergy state alliance, including some other cases. So that's why I am not arguing that Muslim societies has a particular problem, especially on the ulama state alliance. Instead, it's a worldwide global problem. I've wrote about the Muslim societies. Now I'm writing about United States, France, Israel, other societies. How populism, religion, nationalism can come together to establish an authoritarian system which eventually lead to underdevelopment. Because my argument is that in both Muslim and non-Muslim societies, separation between four classes are very important. And these four classes are state, religious authority, clergy, ulama, mullah, you name them, or the Catholic and Protestant and Jewish authorities. Then the economic class, we call them bourgeoisie, corporations, business people, and the intellectual class. We are now the professors, center leaders, journalists, intellectuals. If there is an autonomy and separation between the two, then the society is likely to be more just, less corrupt, more dynamic. In Delhi a year ago, when I gave this presentation and emphasized my argument that there should be a separation between religious, political, economic, and academic authorities and spheres, I gave the example of Donald Trump and Elon Musk and say the two come together, which is bad for American economy and politics, they should be separated. Then an Indian newspaper nicely say, how is ulama state alliance is linked to Donald Trump and Elon Musk? That's the professor gave a talk about. So that's one thing I want to emphasize. There is nothing particularly wrong with Muslim societies. Blaming Islam or Muslim societies for violence, authoritarianism, underdevelopment is wrong. We call it essentialism, Orientalism, or Islamophobia in America, which was after 9/11, was very influential, unfortunately. I'm hearing some voices. Everything okay? Okay. So I go ahead.
Maybe someone opened his live.
Yeah,
so maybe
everyone mute,
is
it's better, right?
listening. Yes,
Good.
yes.
So now,
So
the
please
first
mute
thing,
your. Everyone can mute his mic.
the first thing I want to emphasize this one, that there is nothing that's called Muslim exceptionalism. Every religion can be interpreted in a way it is authoritarian or more democratic, pro-development or not. Another thing I want to emphasize is that this critique is mostly about majorities, because in Turkey, in Pakistan, in Egypt, elsewhere, Muslim majority societies, they have the problem of authoritarianism and underdevelopment, similar to, as I said, other countries on earth. And then this problem is very interesting because Muslims had a golden age, as Dr. Rahman also briefly mentioned in the introduction. Muslims had a golden age from 8 to 12 centuries in terms of science and philosophy. How come they end up with less developed, less democratic than many other countries on earth today? And when I deal with this problem, it's mostly, as I said, about majority Muslim societies like Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia. When it comes to minorities, this argument and my book should not be used to blame Muslims, because I am a minority in America as a Muslim, and I don't want to be blamed because of my identity as if I am linked to authoritarianism and underdevelopment. No, it has nothing to do like that. Minorities should be protected everywhere. Minorities everywhere, either Muslim minorities in non-Muslim countries or Christian, Jewish, Zoroastrian, other minorities in Muslim majority countries should be given full citizenship. Everything should be equal citizenship based. So as a minority in America, I made my contributions and I should be given in exchange full citizenship rights without discriminating with my religion. So after emphasizing these two things, that there is nothing exceptional about Islam and we should not nobody should use my book to criticize minorities. Now, very briefly, what is the puzzle, the research question? It is about the comparison of how Muslims establish a golden age and why they are no longer that productive today. What was the golden age? It was a time of philosophical and economic productivity. Economically today, many institutions in European system or global system, they are based on Arab Muslim merchants. For example, the check we use in banking transactions is based on Persian word sheikh. Or in science, most of the word in English starting AL coming from Arabic, like algorithm, algebra, and camera we use now for this event is first produced by an Arab in a dark room, camera obscura. The numbers Muslim learn from India, then they develop and taught to Europeans. That's why they are now called Indo-Arabic numbers. Philosophy, Aristotelian and Platonic philosophy were very much uh, understood and explained by Arab philosophers. Then Europeans discovered Aristotelian philosophy after the 12th century by the translations of Ibn Rushd. Ibn Sina, Farabi, all of them were great scholars, and they were together with great ulama like Abu Hanifa, which was the founder of the Hanafi school where I was grow up in Turkey, the mostly Hanafi and also some Shafi people there in Turkey. Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Ahmed bin Hanbal, or Shia Imams like Jafar Sadiq. These people in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th centuries, they were together with philosophers and polymaths, and they said no to receive money from the government, and certain separation between the ulama and the state make philosophical and economic dynamism very much vibrant in Muslim societies. Instead of receiving money from government, they receive money from commerce. They were either traders like Abu Hanifa was a silk merchant, or Ahmed bin Hanbal worked in textile factory, or their families were merchant families. And this ulama saying no to public government money and positions were the majority. We have number of about 4,000 ulama from 8th to mid 11th century. Only 9% accept to be qadr, like Abu Yusuf, a student of Abu Hanifa. But he was a minority. The majority, 91%, were mostly linked to commerce, say no to government, when government try to use them to justify oppression, justify corruption. And they paid the price. We know the anecdotes of Imam Bukhari was put in exile because he didn't serve the government. Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, Abu Hanifa, they were all charged with certain punishments because of their principal distance. But their principal distance give the idea that Islam should be about morality, ethics, and against corruption and oppression. But this changed after the 11th century for various reasons I analyze in the book: economic transformations, political rise of nomadic Turkish warriors, my ancestors, Seljuks, Ottomans. They made more emphasis on military rather than economy. Economy became more state control, military based. Merchant class was marginalized. Then ulama started to get money from the government. And great scholars like Imam Ghazali or later on Ibn Taymiyyah interpret Islam state relations in a more in a much closer way. And they refer to two things. One is a Sasani maxim, a king of Iran, Ardashir, 300 years before Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, said, religion and state are twins. Religion is the foundation, state is the guardian, that without foundation collapses, that without guardian perishes. Although this was a pre-Islamic proverb, nothing to do with Islam, after the 11th, 12th centuries, when the ulama need to justify their partnership with the government, they use this Iranian maxim as if it is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is not. Another interpretation was Ibn Taymiyyah in the 13th century Egypt and Damascus. He said the phrase in the Quran, ulul amr minkum, basically asking Muslims to obey those who have authority and knowledge and expertise, means umara and ulama, means state and ulama, basically ulama state alliance. And since that time, Muslims were preaching, dictated that it's an Islamic order to obey ulama state alliance. But when we analyze Islam, Islamic history, we see there's no such thing. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ was both a religious and political leader, but he is an exception because he was receiving, according to Muslim belief, receiving wahi, revelation from God. There is no one among us today with such a religious authority. No one is getting revelation. That's why his example cannot be repeated. 400 years, 500 years, the main ulama leaders like Abu Hanifa refused to obey the state. And then this ulama state partnership emerged after the 11th, 12th centuries, became more consolidated to a lesser extent in the Mughal Empire, stronger extent Sunni version in Shia version in Safavi, Sunni version Ottoman Empire. That's how Muslims started to become colonized. So in this regard, colonization is a problem, but it is mostly the effect rather than the cause. Because once Muslim stop appreciating intellectuals and economic class, stop being dynamic philosophically and economically, they became weaker. When Europeans get stronger by Renaissance, Reformation, printing revolution, Enlightenment, scientific revolution, industrial revolution, they use three Chinese instruments: printing press, nautical compass, and gunpowder. The Muslim empires, Mughal, Ottoman, Safavi, they only use gunpowder. They didn't get printing press. The first Muslim printing press was established in Istanbul 300 years after Europeans. This is unacceptable. What is the result? The result is that once Muslims had great libraries, hundreds of thousands of books, some say millions, in Cairo, Qurtuba, Baghdad, Damascus. Later on, after Europeans established printing presses, they established great libraries, and Muslims had low literacy rate, less books, less intellectual life, and ulama state alliance prohibited printing press in Istanbul. When it was first opened, they say you can only print non-religious books. And Turks had to wait the Republic of 1924 to have a single copy of the translation of the Quran into Turkish with a printing press. But early Muslims, let me conclude by repeating this, early Muslims were much more open-minded. Abu Hanifa said you can use non-Arabic language even in prayer. If some say you don't know Arabic, others say no, you can use your language because the meaning important. And there was agreement that translation between the lines was possible. Today in museums, we have 10, 11, 12th century translation of the Quran in Turkish and Persian. But later on, it became a taboo. So, what is the lesson for today? because yes, I'm a director of Center Islamic Arabic Studies, but also a political scientist. Today, the young generation in Iran, in Turkey, many are living Islam. They are becoming deists, if not atheists. They are becoming less practical, observing Muslim. Why? Because they see an incompatibility between what is Islam, Sharia, Islamic law, and everything, and the modern life. The gap was obvious even at the time of Shatibi, 15th century Andalusian scholar, who said, I'm emphasizing maqasid Sharia, the high objectives of Islamic law, because the old interpretation of Islamic law are not answering or questioned today. So if Shatibi said in the 15th century, what about 21st century? 21st century India, America, Turkey. So my book suggests that we need an open dialogue. Ulama should not impose us apostasy, blasphemy laws, restrictions with partnership with the state. Ulama should not discriminate and marginalize intellectuals, and state should not marginalize bourgeoisie and business class. The separation between the four will be a new time both for Muslim minority and Muslim majorities to have a vibrant economy, vibrant intellectual life. And let me conclude by saying that I'm not imposing a Western agenda here. Yes, I teach in the United States. I've been here for a quarter of a century. But most of my sources, when you look at the beautiful translation Dr. Rahman and Khusra Foundation achieve in both Hindi and Urdu, you see that my sources are Islamic, historian, Arabic sources, referring to Abu Hanifa, referring to Ibn Rushd, Ibn Khaldun. And the problem of stagnation is very much repeated again and again in Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah or Haji Khalifa Katib Chelembi, the greatest Ottoman intellectuals and historian. He said that we are in decline, or madrasas are excluding philosophy and science. We cannot catch up with Europe if we keep that way. So in this regard, it's really a call to rethink Islamic history. Muslim may have a renaissance, a rethinking of economy and philosophy by looking their own history from a different angle. This is not westernization or imitating Western model. No, it is a truly authentic Islamic call to have an open society, collaboration with non-Muslims, learning from them, teaching them, and appreciating intellectuals and the bourgeois class. So this call resonates in many countries. Next month, I'm going to Brazil. A friend asked me, where did you find Muslims in Brazil to translate the book? I say, no one in Brazil translating my book, editing, organizing talk is Muslim. But they are non-Muslims who are understanding the importance of Islam, the importance of Islamic history, how Islam was a great civilization, and they are trying to learn from this discussion. That's why this book gets an attention from both Muslim and non-Muslim audiences. And I'm happy to have this discussion here in India online, and thank you for organizing.
Thank you very much indeed.